Hi, good to meet everybody. So thanks very much, Chris. Yeah, today I want to talk to everybody about how the metaverse is helping us change our infrastructure and our buildings. So the physical world itself has been the last industry to be digitized. Now, there's lots and lots of technical and complex reasons for this. It's not just the complexity in terms of capturing information from the real world, but it's also how we take a physical object and bring it onto a computer screen or a mobile phone. And how do you take the vast amount of information that the real world contains and squish it all down into something that is manageable, usable, and understandable? How do we get all of that data? And what we're actually finding is that even when you can get some data, it quite often sits in all of these different silos and it's stuck with engineering teams or technicians and requires massive computing power. Now, the data itself that you get only becomes usable and important when it's actually connectable and usable by all the employees in an organization. And what you're finding today is only about 20% of people really have access to this. So what I want to look at is, what is the metaverse and how is it well placed and well primed to look at all the challenges of this built environment? So first of all, what is the metaverse? You know, some people say it's a network of 3D spaces with social connection. Another definition is the next generation of the mobile internet, consistent of persistent shared 3D virtual spaces linked to form a virtual universe. There's all these definitions out there, but very simply, the metaverse is the gradual convergence of the physical world with the digital world, a virtual space where users can interact, work, and experience things as if they could in the real world, but they can now do so digitally. And there are, in fact, several different versions of the internet. I know Chris just mentioned just now around the whole work with Facebook, or Meta as they now are. They have a very synthetic, a very static view of what the metaverse will look like. And others like Microsoft are looking at it as an interconnected, automatically updating digital world, synchronized with reality. But as actual fact, as with the internet, and when we saw the emergence of that, it's not going to suddenly just appear, and will probably be neither of those, and will be something in between. It's going to gradually evolve and continuously update through time. So now we know what it is. Why is it actually important for us, and why will it help buildings? Well, as human beings, we're instinctively visual. Half the human brain is actually devoted to, or indirectly or directly, to visual communication and processing visual information. 90% of our communication as people is non-verbal. Now, the metaverse, the way of visually holding information, transmits and translates all that complex data, all that complex information into something that is usable by everybody. We can enhance that information with artificial intelligence and start to look at it in terms of just display me the things that are important. Just display it in a way that it is red if it's a problem and green if it's okay. All of a sudden, all this complexity can be translated into something that is usable. It gives you a visual intelligence. Now let's look at visual intelligence. What does that actually mean? We can look at it like a compass. Without a compass, a vessel can't make the most of its assets. It's uncertain where it's heading, how it will be impacted by the environment, and how it can reach its destination with a maximum efficiency and care for all of its crew and everything that's on board it. Now, businesses have to take certain actions to increase their ROI, to communicate and to manage disparate teams from all over the world, automate with confidence and set out clear directions and to grow. Now, when we can connect and integrate all this data and translate it into simple visual intelligence, we enable these actions. It is the compass. Everything is measurable. It becomes predictable, and it's accessible to everybody inside your organization. The data is now where you need it, when you need it, and by whoever needs it. Now, to give an example, we already use data in a car where multiple sensors capture information in the moment. They predict, they warn, they assess us. You're braking, you need to go faster, you need to slow down. It will help you brake. It will display your speed on the road in front of you and display that red if you're too fast or green if you're okay. It's a visual cue that you don't even realize that you're using the tools of the metaverse, of things like artificial intelligence, machine vision protocols, augmented reality, all these names for tools and building foundations of the metaverse, but they're actually of visual intelligence that is displayed for you as simple as red and green. We can identify now things like, where is the crack on the road? When will that crack turn into a pothole? And all this information can simply be mapped. Now, we already know all the geometrical data from our environment are helping people work more effectively. They optimize the space and the assets and make the most of it. And now what this is enabling us to do is translate additional information that was previously unseen, things like carbon emissions, particulate matters, human and biometric data, like where did you look and how long did you look for? What route did you take through a space? How did we feel when we entered an environment? And what was the impact on our mental health when we were in there for too long? All of these things about our mood and our triggers can be measured and can be looked at and can help us enhance and manage all the spaces from around us. We can now display that data around us and find out, actually, it's the light in this room that is causing people to have a sad effect or to feel depressed. And they've been exposed in this environment for too long. Now we can help create spaces that are helping us to live and be healthier and work in more enriching ways. Now, we've heard all this kind of theory and understand the importance of why the metaverse is important, but actually it's quite hard to still kind of really look at it and concept it in relation to our real world. So what I want to look at today is a few different examples from housing all the way through to transportation and utilities, and how real world companies that companies like myself have worked with are actually using the metaverse to transform the way that they're working, to be more efficient, to empower their employees to be more than they could do before. And these are real world use cases with real data. So housing design, all of these formats, they all take a similar vein. We create a real life digital copy of either a real building that already exists or an architect's concept of something. And when we can translate that into a digital copy, you can have a virtual walkthrough of that space, either through your desktop or through something like these with the VR headset. Now, when you go through that space, lots of things can be measured. Every single item in that space can become a measurable pixel. You can be measurement accurate, communication accurate, you can take copies of it and share it. Now, when you put people inside it, you can even tie on biometric sensors and start to understand how they feel. Now, a care home company are utilizing this very kind of techniques to understand the long-term implications of the design of a care home on both the residents and the employees, and the long-term effects on their mental health for being there. Now, why is that important? Well, it has obviously, societal importance, but also importance for the care home. They have set amounts of budget to spend on individual, per head. Now, actually, if you can help enhance the mental health and well-being, you can get additional grants from the government, but also you're making people happier, more mobile. The requirements they have on your individual services are less, and that money can go further. And what they're seeing is over 200% uplift in both the mental health of the people inside those care homes, but also in terms of the ROI that they're receiving in terms of the management of those spaces. Other companies are doing the same kind of thing, but in terms of the resale value. So if I design my apartment for resale to look like this, how much money am I going to get unless I design it like this? And we can A/B test digitally multiple different scenarios, and then you can actually implement the one that is going to work the best for you and give you the most return on your investment. There is one property group we work with in Sweden that got £250,000 more for the same square footage just by adjusting their design with a before and after A/B testing beforehand. Now, estate management, many companies have big portfolios of properties all over the place, not always geographically in one city. It can be anything from retail chains to properties and apartments. The metaverse provides a way for all of the information about all of these properties and portfolios to be together in one space. It could be, when was it last maintained? What are the IoT device feeds? How much energy am I using? What is my floor plan? Everything can be brought back to that map, and everything can be displayed accurately where it's needed, when it's needed, inside the digital copy. Now, this is enabling people to do things like their customer service team, if somebody calls up, can now see the space. They can understand what the user on the end of the phone is talking about, and they can guide them visually through the cues on where to find things and how to solve the problems. If there is a fault, they're then able to send visual recreations of that real world space in the form of a visual work order with a map, and the maintenance crews can now see what materials they need before they arrive. For example, do they need an extra long ladder? Do they need to bring scaffolding? Do they need special equipment? They can also have information on the actual structure of the property, tagged with information on what light bulb is this? What do I need to bring to replace it? Who was the last person that did the repair? And the information can be tagged virtually on your desktop, mobile, or even your VR, or it can also go on an app on your mobile phone, and you can leave information tagged into the real world and information and instructions so that anybody can access it when they're on site. All of a sudden, the fusion of this information makes you more efficient, and it means you have one site visit, your teams are able to perform in a more enhanced way, and you're able to manage your estate portfolios in a wholly different way. And when you start coming down a level from the actual estate management levels itself and more into that facilities management, you know, we've worked a lot with hospitals, with office spaces, you know, schools. Often it's things as simple as cleaning instructions. These companies that help manage these spaces tend to have a high turnover of employees. And often the employees are speaking multiple different languages and don't always speak the language in the country that they're living or operating. If you can take a visual copy of that space and now train your employees visually with, here is the space and this is what you need to clean or to manage. This is where you need to go when you go in there. And as simple as, this is where you will find your cleaning fluids or your instructions on how to clean that space. You can train them digitally before you go there. They know where they're going. And if they happen to forget, they can hold up their mobile phone, click an app, and it will put arrows on the floor and put them in the right direction to find the materials that they need. All the information on the building information management, the architecture, the design, the storage, all the structure of the building can be stored in the same way, either through holding up an app which will point out, where are all of my cables? Where do I drill to make sure, and if I want to hang this sign, that there's no water pipe behind the wall, I can now see it. I now have that information that I am more efficient with my time. And what about service maintenance? We've got boiler room engineers, lifts and mechanical rooms. These are very complex spaces, and there's lots of information that they can contain that will help empower you to be more efficient with your time. If you can capture a measurement accurate digital copy of that space, your engineers can plan and optimize for the new layouts of the equipment and the machines. If we can start to capture information and things like the humidity or the temperature, you can start to forecast the erosion on the pipes and the degradation of the actual equipment itself. All of a sudden, you can start to empower your teams and your companies to be more proactive in the management of their spaces, to make sure that the companies are having less downtime from those spaces. And in buildings like hospitals, schools and things, these are really important proactive things that companies can do. Not only that, you're enabling your workforce to understand the environment they're going into before they go into them. They can see what equipment they need. They can see who last did the work. They can walk through the space and plan their work all before they go on site. That actually becomes really important when you start looking at things like rail and road, and we start to go into real critical infrastructure. We're working with companies like Transport for London and the Swedish governments on creating digital copies of rail infrastructure and networks. And in doing this, it's allowing them to create asset management digital copies and environmental and emission digital copies. We can start to see and understand the entire health of a space, everything from the noise pollution all the way through to how many screws and where are they and how many light bulbs. By attaching multi-sensor capture devices to the transport systems, you can capture the data on a frequent basis and make sure that you always have an up-to-date copy of that space. And now you can empower your teams to see that. We can do scan 1 versus scan 2 and compare the two automatically and look for faults and changes over time. We can start to do asset automation, like how many light bulbs, how many potholes. You know, in this case, with regards to the design and measurement, when you've got all that measurement data that's sitting underneath everything, the bottom right image there shows all the measurement data and what it would look like. It's called a point cloud. And each one of those individual dots is actually a piece of information and contains data about the real world site. Now, this represents a train depot, and this train depot are having a new lift go in for the management and the maintenance of trains. Now, all of a sudden, instead of implementing all that work and finding out that you've got multiple different types of train that need looking after, you can now assess that and do simulations of what will happen if I've got this train versus this train. Do I have enough clearance? Is there space in what I'm planning to do in my design upgrades in my railway for my train stock? And you can actually simulate each train on that new lift before you actually go on site and do the build. Your asset management window is extended from just operating hours where you're closing down track, have a small window at night when there's no trains running, to being able to plan and manage everything during the daytime hours. Your teams can now meet virtually anywhere without the need for additional health and safety or track training. And you can actually plan all of your work in advance. And this also applies in the road industry. You can put these sensor systems on the car, drive down the roads, and we can start to auto-identify where all the faults are, where all the crosswalks are, and auto-classify them into which ones are a problem and need repainting, or which pothole and which crack is going to be the problem and turn into the, the solution that is required first. It will help us display things as simple as red or green. And as you can see, the bottom right image here is actually showing you the surface structure of the road. And even though the eye might not be able to detect it, we can start to see what is under the road. Is there water ingress? What is the rutting or the issues within the road surface structure? What are the things, knowing what we know around, say, snowfall or rainfall? How do we predict the future health of our road environments? And all of this information being displayed in simple visual cues that now your machines can start to understand, as well as the people, can start to make your people more efficient with the limited time and the limited resources that they have. We can start to optimize sections of road before others, and also make sure that the work they're doing in those areas is actually the right work at the right time. And finally, is things like the energies and the utilities. If we take the example on the left, we have a pipe network. Well, at the moment, without cracking open that pipe or, literally digging up the road, you can't see where the problem necessarily is. And you might end up digging up more road or more environment than you need to. By sending simple camera systems and sensors down inside the pipe network, you can now meet as a team inside the pipe. You can see inside the pipe. You can walk through that space and walk visually through that pipe and plan all of your work. And because the data that you're capturing inside that pipe is geospatially accurate, you now know where to dig, when to dig, and how to do it, what areas of road need closing, and can get all the right permits and do the right work at the right time. Things like maybe anything from oil rigs to your utilities and your power lines. By doing different kinds of data capture from visual communication like the pipes, all the way through to thermal imaging, you can start to see where faults might lie inside those networks. You no longer need to send crews to the top of those areas. You can send a drone up and take photography, capture those images, capture all that data, and then meet inside the space and actually go and do a close-up inspection, but without having to close down the power line. you can start to predict where those faults are. You can see the wind farms out at sea without actually having to go there and climb up those devices. You can see underwater. All of those things are now possible through the metaverse and through those kind of techniques. And whilst it might sound like it is all crazy and it's, out and unobtainable, the simple fact is visual intelligence is delivering proven results today. Already, companies are seeing over 25% increase in savings and over 33% uplift in ROI as an average across all those industries and those examples. Up to 75% in OPEX savings in some instances. Those are crazy numbers, but they are all real world examples from things that I've just talked about today and are all achievable today. So the metaverse is the future. It is helping us with planning and monitoring, everything through from those into prediction. It is helping us manage massive data sets and translating it into something that is usable, understandable, and accessible to every person that needs to do it. It is intrinsic into the way that we as human beings are structured and the way that we can consume and understand data and information. Now, other industries have shown that first movers can build up competitive advantage. And one thing's for sure, the metaverse is here and it is going to help the first movers to be able to gain that competitive advantage. And it will drive efficiency and it will deliver you ROI. Thank you.